"The meat is always fresh here," my manager said on my first day. I thought she meant the steaks. Now I know better. Now I know why the night shift is always short-staffed. Why no one ever quits, they just disappear. But I can't leave. None of us can. We're bound to this place, to its rules, to its hunger. And tonight, as I start another shift, I wonder, will I be serving the customers, or will I be served to them? I arrived for my first shift at the Big Texan Steak Ranch, a bundle of nerves and excitement. The neon sign flickered in the twilight, casting an eerie glow across the parking lot. As I pushed open the heavy door, the smell of sizzling meat and something else hit me like a wall. The manager greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. There was something off about her gaze, like she was looking through me rather than at me. "Welcome to the team," she said, her voice eerily cheerful. "I'm sure you'll fit right in." She reached under the counter and pulled out a battered leather-bound book. The edges were frayed, and dark stains marred its cover. "This is your employee handbook," she explained, sliding it across the counter. "Memorize these rules. Your life depends on it." I laughed nervously, assuming it was some kind of hazing ritual for the new girl. But the manager's expression remained deadly serious. My laughter died in my throat as I realized she wasn't joking. With shaking hands, I opened the handbook. The pages were yellowed with age, covered in cramped handwriting and hastily scrawled notes in the margins. As I flipped through, my stomach churned. Never leave food unattended in the kitchen. Okay, that seemed normal enough. Always keep the salt shakers full. A bit odd, but not too concerning. Then I saw it. Rule number 13, written in bold red ink, never look directly at table 13. What? I blinked, sure I had misread. But no, there it was clear as day. My mind raced. Was this some kind of practical joke? A test to see if I was actually reading the rules. I glanced up, hoping to catch the manager's eye and share a laugh about this absurd rule. But she was gone, vanished into the back of the restaurant without a sound. A movement caught my eye. Another waitress, her name tag read Sarah, was staring at me intently from across the room. When our eyes met, she mouthed something urgently. A warning? I couldn't make it out, but the fear in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, the lights flickered, just for a moment, but in that split second of darkness, I swore I saw no. Impossible. It had to be a trick of the light, my imagination running wild after reading those bizarre rules. As the shift wore on, I tried to shake off the unsettling feeling. I focused on learning the menu, memorizing table numbers, anything to distract myself from the nagging questions in the back of my mind. But my eyes kept being drawn to table 13, sitting ominously in the corner. Empty, always empty, no matter how busy we got. I caught Sarah watching me again, her face a mask of concern. When I approached her, she quickly turned away, busying herself with wiping down an already clean table. "Hey," I said softly, "what's the deal with table 13? Sarah froze, her knuckles white as she gripped the rag. "Don't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just don't ask, don't look. Pretend it's not there." Before I could press further, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Sarah bolted, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts and growing dread. As the night wore on, I found myself hyper-aware of table 13. It sat there, innocent and ordinary, yet somehow menacing in its emptiness. Despite my best efforts, my gaze kept being drawn to it, like a magnet pulling at my very soul. I didn't mean to look. It was an accident, a momentary lapse in concentration as I hurried past with a tray full of steaming plates. But in that fleeting second, our eyes met. And that's when I learned why we're never allowed to look directly at table 13. I wish I hadn't. God, I wish I hadn't. Time has a way of dulling even the sharpest fears. Weeks passed, and I almost convinced myself I'd imagined them that whole first night. Almost. Then Sarah disappeared, and the true horror of the Big Texan began to reveal itself. It's funny how quickly the bizarre can become routine. I found myself settling into a rhythm at the diner, my mind adapting to the strange rules that governed our nights. I don't look at table 13. Keep the salt shakers full. Never leave food unattended in the kitchen. They became as natural as breathing, a survival instinct I didn't know I possessed. But Sarah never quite adjusted. I'd catch her staring at table 13 when she thought no one was looking, her face a mixture of fear and fascination. I wanted to warn her, to tell her about that night when I accidentally looked. But the words always died in my throat, held back by a terror I couldn't explain. Then, one night, Sarah didn't show up for her shift. At first, we all assumed she was just running late. But as the hours ticked by and her station remained empty, a heavy silence fell over the diner. No one said a word, but I could feel the unease radiating from my coworkers. I couldn't take it anymore. During a lull in customers, I cornered our manager in the back office. "Where's Sarah?" I demanded, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. She looked at me with those empty eyes, her smile as plastic as ever. "Oh, Sarah? She quit. Decided to move back home, I think." The lie was so blatant it made my skin crawl. "But her car," I protested. "It's still in the lot. I saw it when I came in." For a split second, I swore I saw something flicker behind the manager's eyes. Fear? Anger. But then it was gone, replaced by that same vacant smile. "I'm sure she'll be by to pick it up soon. Now, don't you have tables to attend to?" I knew I was being dismissed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As I made my way back to the dining room, my eyes were drawn to table 13, and that's when I saw it. A customer sat there, a man I'd never seen before. But around his neck, I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. It was Sarah's necklace. The delicate silver chain with the little hummingbird charm. She never took it off, said it was from her grandmother. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. In that split second, everything changed. The necklace was gone, and so was the customer. Table 13 sat empty once more, pristine and untouched, as if no one had ever been there. My mind reeled, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. That's when I heard it. The first few notes drifted through the diner, a song I knew all too well. The one she'd always put on the jukebox during slow nights, swaying and singing along as she refilled ketchup bottles. But the jukebox was across the room, and no one was near it. As the music filled the air, I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was a message. A warning. And suddenly I knew. I knew what happened to waitresses who broke the rules at the Big Texan. I found out later, in bits and pieces, whispered confessions from longtime staff, cryptic notes scribbled in the margins of the employee handbook. The truth was worse than anything I could have imagined. God, how I wish I could forget. How I wish I could go back to that first night, turn around, and never set foot in this godforsaken diner. But it's too late now. I'm in too deep. And as I start another shift, I can't help but wonder, will I be the next to disappear? You ever notice how time seems to slow down in the dead of night? At the Big Texan, it doesn't just slow down. At 2:13 a.m., it stops completely. And that's when the real customers arrive. I've been here long enough to have a routine. Serve, smile, survive. It's a mantra that gets me through each shift, a shield against the horrors that lurk just beyond the edge of perception. But no matter how many nights I work, no matter how prepared I think I am, nothing can ready me for 2:13 a.m. It always starts the same way. The ancient clock above the register, its face yellowed with age, ticks steadily towards the cursed hour. My skin prickles with goosebumps, a primal warning of what's to come. And then, like clockwork, the lights flicker. It's not just a blink, a momentary loss of power. No, this is different. The fluorescents sputter and gasp, plunging the diner into a darkness so thick it feels alive. And in those moments suspended between light and shadow, I see things that shouldn't exist. Shadows writhe across the walls, defying gravity and logic. They twist and contort, forming shapes that hurt my eyes to look at. Faces peer out from the darkness, hollow-eyed and hungry. They're not human, not even close. Their features shift and melt like wax under a flame, before vanishing as quickly as they appeared. The first time it happened, I thought I was losing my mind. I scrubbed my eyes, certain it was just exhaustion playing tricks on me. But night after night, always at 2:13 a.m., the veil between worlds grows thin. And what slips through? God, I wish I could unsee it. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw last night. As the lights flickered, I caught a glimpse of movement by the door. A figure, silhouetted against the neon glow from outside. My breath caught in my throat as I realized I was looking at myself. But it wasn't me, not really. This doppelganger wore my face like an ill-fitting mask. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, as if it was still learning how to inhabit a human form. And its eyes, they were black voids reflecting nothing but an endless, ravenous hunger. I blinked, and it was gone. The lights steadied, casting their sickly glow over the empty diner once more. But I could still feel its presence, a cold weight pressing against my chest. I knew then that I'd seen something I wasn't meant to see, crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. That's when I decided I needed answers. Why 2:13 a.m.? What was so special about that exact moment? I started digging, asking questions I knew I shouldn't. The old-timers clammed up, their faces pale with fear. But Jimmy, the fry cook who'd been here even longer than the manager, finally cracked. "It's when they feed," he whispered, his eyes darting nervously to the corners of the kitchen. The things behind the veil, the real owners of this place. They need sustenance, and we're the closest source. I pressed him for more, but he shook his head violently. Don't ask, kid. Just be grateful you're still on this side of the lights when they flicker. But I couldn't let it go. I had to know. So I did something stupid, something I knew would break every rule in that cursed employee handbook. I hid in the diner after closing, determined to see what really happened when the clock struck 2:13 a.m. I got my answers that night. But the price, oh God, the price was too high. I'll never forget the sounds, the smells, the sight of Jimmy's face as they. I can't talk about it. I won't. But I understand now. I understand why we keep the salt shakers full, why we never leave food unattended in the kitchen. It's not for the customers we serve during the day. It's for the things that come when time stops, when the veil grows thin. And now, as I start another shift, I know I can never leave. I'm bound to this place just like all the others. Because once you've seen what lurks in the flickering darkness at 2:13 a.m., there's no going back. There's only serve, smile, and survive. There's a reason our steaks are famous. It's not the seasoning, the cut, or even the cook. No, the secret to the Big Texan's mouth-watering meat lies behind a locked door I was never meant to open. But I did. And now I know why some doors should stay shut. It's always been there, that door, tucked away in the back of the kitchen, its paint peeling and hinges rusted. I must have walked past it 100 times, never giving it a second thought. Just another storage closet, right? Wrong. So very, very wrong. I first noticed something was off about 3 months into my time at the Big Texan. It was a slow night, and I was restocking napkins when I heard it. A sound so alien, so utterly wrong, that it made my blood run cold. It was coming from behind that door. I froze, straining my ears. It was like meat being torn from bone, but amplified 1,000 times. Wet, squelching noises punctuated by sharp cracks and something that might have been screaming if it had come from a human throat. Before I could process what I was hearing, Jimmy appeared at my elbow. The fry cook's perpetual scowl was replaced by a grin that was all teeth. Too many teeth. Too sharp. "Everything all right there, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice dripping with false concern. I stammered something about hearing a noise. Jimmy's grin widened impossibly. "Oh, that?" he chuckled. "Just the meat tenderizer. Gotta keep our steaks nice and soft, you know?" But we didn't have a meat tenderizer. I'd been in every nook and cranny of that kitchen, and I'd never seen anything that could make a sound like that. Jimmy must have sensed my disbelief. His eyes hardened, all traces of friendliness vanishing. "Best not to ask questions, girl. Some things you're better off not knowing." He shuffled away, leaving me alone with the locked door and the sounds that definitely weren't coming from any meat tenderizer I'd ever heard of. I tried to forget about it, to lose myself in the routine of serve, smile, survive. But my eyes kept being drawn to that door. And then, one night, I saw it. A thin line of red, seeping out from under the door. Blood. Fresh, vibrant, impossible to mistake. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached, drawn by a morbid curiosity I couldn't suppress. I blinked, and it was gone. The floor was spotless, no trace of the crimson tide I'd just witnessed. Had I imagined it? Was I finally cracking under the pressure of this place? The next day, the lunch rush was in full swing when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. "These steaks," a customer was saying, his voice full of wonder. "I've never tasted anything like them. So tender, so flavorful. What's your secret?" I turned, already knowing what I'd see. Jimmy was there, that too wide grin splitting his face. "Oh, we have our methods," he said with a wink. "Some things are best kept behind closed doors." His eyes met mine across the room, and in that moment I knew. I knew that he knew that I knew. The truth hung between us, unspoken but undeniable. That night, after everyone had gone home, I went back to the kitchen. The door loomed before me, its peeling paint and rusted hinges suddenly sinister in the dim light. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe I was tired of the secrets, the lies, the constant feeling of dread. Maybe I just needed to know once and for all. I picked the lock. It was easier than I expected, as if the door wanted to be opened, as if it had been waiting for me. What I found on the other side, God, I wish I could forget. I wish I could go back to not knowing, to believing in meat tenderizers and coincidences. But I can't. And now I can never leave. Because once you've seen what really goes into making the Big Texan's famous steaks, you become part of the recipe, whether you want to or not. I'm still here at the Big Texan, night after night, serving up steaks with a side of dread. But I'm not the same person who walked through those doors all those months ago. This place changes you, reshapes you into something else. If you ever find yourself driving down that lonely stretch of highway and see our neon sign flickering in the distance, keep driving. But if curiosity gets the better of you, if you can't resist the siren call of our famous steaks, remember this: the meat is always fresh here. Always. And there's a reason for that. Whatever you do, don't look at table 13. Don't ask about the sounds coming from the kitchen. And for God's sake, don't be here at 2:13 a.m. Because in this diner, you're either serving the menu or you're on it.
Thank you for watching. I'm a waitress at the Deadliest Steakhouse. If you enjoyed this haunting story and want to hear more, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Stay spooky and remember, some places are better left alone.